on our list, that being Courtland Sutton, Broncos wide receiver, currently sitting just outside the top 100. He's the wide receiver 46. Last year in PPR, he was a wide receiver 35. What I thought was interesting looking at Courtland Sutton in his first 65 games as an NFL player, he had 14 touchdowns. Last season, he had 10. So it's kind of a jump there. So you have to hope that he's going to get the receptions to balance out some potential touchdown regression. The quarterback position's a huge question mark there in Denver. It was last year, I guess, if you didn't believe in Russell Wilson. It's going to be more so this year, even though Sean Payton thinks that Bo Nix is the second coming of Joe Montana. But Pete, you are the what's that, Anthony? You got something?
Does he?
I thought he loved him. I mean, he was all snarky and happy about drafting him, and acted like they got away with something for drafting him. But Pete, I know you are the Broncos guy. We have talked there about some of the Bo Nix has to start right away, this and that, so on and so forth. What are your thoughts there? Courtland Sutton, fantasy football sleeper this year? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I do like Courtland Sutton. If there is a guy that I prefer in this room, it's probably Marvin Mims a little bit later. But the thing with Courtland Sutton is, this Broncos offense is probably going to be playing from behind. Their defense was one of the worst in the NFL last year. It is improved, but you got to assume, they're playing in a division that has probably the worst. They're probably the worst offense in the division, and so they're probably going to be playing from behind. So I assume that there's going to be some volume there. Sutton is, he's going into his second to last year on his deal. He wants a new contract, and guys that want new deals generally have better seasons traditionally. So, maybe that's more motivation for Sutton. I mean, he did have 10 touchdowns last season. And he is a veteran. He is the veteran in this wide receiver room next to Josh Reynolds and Tim Patrick. And he is the proven guy. And so we'll see. I do think it could be a quarterback upgrade just from a standpoint of the quality of the targets that he's getting and just get the timing, at least it's from a timing standpoint. But you guys may
biggest
laugh.
Fucking homer take ever heard.
No, you guys may laugh. Bo Nix is one of the most accurate quarterbacks. He was actually the most accurate quarterback in college football last year.
Courtland Sutton last year had the 5th best catchable target rate at wide receiver and number 2 in target quality rating.
Okay, when I say quality of targets, maybe I misspoke. What I mean is, when it comes to timing and rhythm, Russ doesn't get the ball on time, so it's tough as a receiver at times because you don't know when the ball's getting there. That's why Jerry Jeudy never had his breakout, because he's a timing receiver and he never got it. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really
sucks, but whatever.
Well, I'm not necessarily high on Courtland Sutton. I like Mims if I'm taking a guy in this offense. It's going to be one of the lowest passing volume offenses and one of the lowest scoring offenses in the league. So I'm not going to draft the guy high. He's going outside the top 100, but I prefer Mims if I'm taking a shot on one of the receivers in this room.
All right. And then, by the way, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy last year had, an 18% target share. So that is now out the window and off to Cleveland. So, Anthony, what says you, Courtland Sutton? Can he eat into those Jerry Jeudy targets? Are you in on the timing? I don't think you are. I'm not either.
I mean, the price is right on Courtland Sutton in terms of ADP and what we have to pay for a team's number 1 wide receiver. The problem with Courtland Sutton is he's never drawn more than 126 targets in the season. He did that in 2019. He had 109 back in 2022. Last year, he had 90. So this isn't a very high volume player. I don't love the quarterback room right now. I don't love the 10 touchdowns last year because in his career, his biggest years were 6 and 4 back in 2018 and 2019. And I think that's more of an outlier type of season. I will take some shares of Courtland Sutton, but it's all about price. It's all about being a dart throw at this point. He's a high floor player. The good thing about Sutton is that back-to-back years, he has had at least 10 PPR points per game in these seasons with Sean Payton there. I don't hate it. But are we ever going to see any type of a ceiling from Courtland Sutton? And that's my biggest worry here. But again, at cost, I don't mind taking him, right? Like we can do a lot worse of where he's going at ADP right now. If you look at the other guys going around him, Kendre Miller at running back, I would probably take him over Courtland Sutton because there's some untapped potential there.
Perhaps.
But in terms of the wide receiver position, I'll probably take Courtland Sutton over Tyler Lockett. I'll take Courtland Sutton probably over Rashid Shaheed, who's great for best ball for a couple of spike weeks, but is empty in most other spots. Curtis Samuel, I feel like I already know what he is by now. And I think he's getting overhyped by going to Josh Allen's Bills, who I will take over Courtland Sutton. Going around that price point is Khalil Shakir and probably Brandon Cooks and maybe even Mike Williams, who are going about 15 spots later. I do think those ceilings are higher, but if I need a stability piece, if I need a high floor at this part of the draft, I'll happily take Courtland Sutton.
How did we do a sleeper show, Pete? And I didn't manage to sneak Brandon Cooks in there. I love Brandon Cooks. I have so many best ball shares of Brandon Cooks. All about that Brandon Cooks. Anyway, I like Courtland Sutton. Is there risk? Yes, clearly. There's a reason why he's outside the top 100. And we'll see what happens with the quarterback thing. I think it's a huge wild card. It can either go decent. It could go well, I guess, or it could go just horrifically bad. So we'll find out. Denver should be interesting, but I don't mind taking a stab at Courtland Sutton. And Pete, I don't mind your take about waiting a little bit longer for Denzel Mims either.
I prefer Marvin Mims in this offense. I think he's got big playability.
Mims,
and for Judy's issues, we saw Marvin Mims break out in the first 4 games. I mean, he had multiple 100-yard games. So I just think that Sean Payton dialed back the offense for Russell Wilson because whatever power dynamic they had there, and Jerry Jeudy was in the Marvin Mims role. So Mims wasn't on the field much because they ran a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, because they ran a lot of blocking heavy sets. So Albert says, any chance they trade Sutton? I do think there's a chance they trade Sutton, not prior to the season. I think at the deadline, he's going to play on his current situation. Maybe they extend him, but if they don't, he's definitely a guy I could see. They don't want to make the same mistake that they made last year, not trading guys like Jeudy and Simmons at the deadline. And the last thing before we move on, Courtland Sutton did have one of the best calls on the season for one of his touchdowns.
Desde la bolsa, va profundo, touchdown, ahora sí.
Yes, I actually remember that.
Love those international calls.
There you go. We got that going for you.
If you watch more soccer, you'll hear that all the time.
Yeah, there you go.